All right, today's the 8th. It occurred to me I didn't have enough time to elaborate a bit more like I should have on Kashmir Shaivism as necessary preparation for a brief discussion on the Logos of Heraclitus, because that's going to figure prominently in my own worldview. So I need to touch on Kashmir Shaivism a little bit more. And for those who aren't aware of what Kashmir Shaivism is, it is a tantric tradition, also known as Trika Shaivism. Trika means Trinity. It is also known as Shaivite Tantra, after the god Shiva, or Tantra Shaivism. There's any number of variations on what you would call it, but it falls under the broad umbrella of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma consists of religions like Buddhism and the orthodox mainstream schools of Hinduism. I think even Sikhism would be considered broadly dharmic, and maybe even Taoism, probably Taoism. But in the minds of many Vedic scholars and orthodox Vedic practitioners, Tantra is not orthodox, so they don't consider it part of orthodox Vedism, but it is dharmic. Which is kind of funny that they don't consider it that when you think about the fact that Tantra is actually far older than the mainstream Vedic schools. But that's for another topic. Basically, it's a Hindu tantric tradition that practices Kundalini Tantra or Kundalini Yoga. And so Kashmir Shaivism gets closest to my understanding of what the primordial truth or the primordial tradition would look like. What the primordial, I hate to say metaphysics for reasons that Heidegger is disinclined to use the term metaphysics, but I'll just say it anyway. I think that it is the original metaphysic, or closest to it. But as I said before, there is a problem when Kashmir Shaivism tries to identify or conflate self-awareness with consciousness. Now, certainly, which they they identify as one thing, and that one thing is goes under the category of the masculine or the god Shiva. The problem with that is, while self-awareness does include consciousness per se is not always where consciousness appears. There's not always self-awareness. So animals have consciousness. The plant world has a degree of consciousness. Even the mineral world, I would argue, even planets have a degree of consciousness, but they're not self-aware in the way that human beings are self-aware, or in the way that the gods are self-aware. The gods have literally a portion of God's spirit, mind, nous, intellect, whatever you want to call it. Don't get that confused with the organ of the brain. I always make sure to say that. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about ratiocination or discursive thought. We're talking about this very deep intuitive faculty that allows us to be aware of the fact that we're aware, and it allows us to be aware of the existence of God, and it enables us to mystically connect with the one, or with God, and it allows us to become aware of the science of spiritual transformation, and so on and so forth. That is not something animals have, and it is qualitatively different from what animals have. Which is why I argue that reincarnation does not operate on the principle of, minerals becoming plants and plants becoming animals and animals becoming human. Only humans have this nous, only humans have the spirit of God in this unique fashion, and therefore only humans can reincarnate. Which I just jumped ahead of myself, because that was technically going to be a subject for another video, but we can revisit that if I want to put more flesh on it. So what Kashmir Shaivism does is it says correctly that there's one God, and many classical Kashmir Shaivites, if not most of them, would say God is a person, which we're in full agreement there. They would say that there are two aspects, the masculine and the feminine. Again, we are agreed. But then they would say, they would conflate self-awareness with consciousness and say that's Shiva, which I don't do. I distinguish them. I say self-awareness or spirit is Shiva, and consciousness is the body of God, which corresponds to Shakti, or the goddess, the feminine principle. What they call the feminine principle is energy or power. So they would say Shakti is the energy or the power of Shiva. Now, energy and power figure very prominently in my view, but I wouldn't divide it that way. I wouldn't say self-awareness / consciousness is Shiva and power or energy is Shakti. What I would say is that self-awareness or spirit is Shiva. Consciousness, the body of God, you could also call it the ether or the prima materia, the primal matter, is that out of which God manifests the cosmos. That is Shakti, the goddess. What Kashmir Shaivites are saying, when Kashmir Shaivites say Shakti is power or energy, I would say power and energy is the unifying principle. It's the essential unity of those two aspects of God, the masculine and the feminine. So I would actually distinguish it from, I wouldn't say it's the masculine pole or the feminine pole. It is that nexus between the two that unites them, that bonds them, that not in the sense of, what do I want to say? It's hard to explain, but basically it's the essential unity of the two. And this is going to figure prominently in my discussion of Heraclitus and my brief summary of Heidegger's take on Heraclitus's logos, and how that fits into my understanding of God as a person. So with that said, I think I've pretty much exhausted what I wanted to say about where I would differ with Kashmir Shaivism. At some point, as we get deeper into the implications of the anthropomorphic side of things, the anthropology side of things, I will explain where I agree and disagree with the two other main views, or the two other main religious philosophies that I'm going to be interacting with, which is Zoroastrianism and Sufism, where I agree, where I disagree, and where my agreements with those two plug in or factor into my overall sort of Kashmir Shaivite perspective on things, so that you'll then have a unified, holistic, integral understanding of where we're coming from, what my worldview is. So with that, I will let you go. 7.5 minutes. So far so good. Staying within that kind of few minute range. All right. Have a good day, guys.